Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Giri Radhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jai Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Shri Radha Madhav ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'll just share my screen so we can go to the verse. So today's verse is Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19, text 3. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:19:3. This is a very beautiful verse, very nice verse in continuation in our reading and our narration of the story of Maharaj Parikshit. Adyaiva rajyam balamriddha kosham prakopita brahma kulanalo me dahatva bhadrasya punarname bhut papi yasidhir dvijadeva gobhya adhyaiva rajyam balamriddha kosham prakopita brahma kulanalo me dahatva bhadrasya punarname bhut papi yasidhir dvijadeva gobhya adyaiva rajyam balamriddha kosham prakopita brahma kulanalo me dahatva bhadrasya punarname bhut papi yasidhir dvijadeva gobhya. Adya, this day, eva, on the very, rajyam, kingdom, balam riddha, strength and riches, kosham, treasury, prakopita, ignited by, brahmakula, by the Brahmana community, anala, fire, may the dahatu, let it burn me, abhadrasya, inauspiciousness, punar, again, na, not, may, unto me, abhut, may occur, papi, yasi, sinful, dhi, intelligence, vija, brahmanas, deva, the supreme lord, gobhya, and the cows. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I am uncivilized and sinful due to my neglect of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my kingdom, strength, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahmana's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. Once again, I am uncivilized and sinful due to my neglect of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my kingdom, strength, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahmana's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Progressive human civilization is based on Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and protection of cows. All economic development of the state by trade, commerce, agriculture, and industries must be fully utilized in relation to the above principles. Otherwise, all so-called economic development becomes a source of degradation. Cow protection means feeding the Brahminical culture, which leads towards God consciousness, and thus perfection of human civilization is achieved. The age of Kali aims at killing the higher principles of life. And although Maharaj Parikshit strongly resisted the domination of the personality of Kali within the world, the influence of the age of Kali came at an opportune moment. And even a strong king like Maharaj Parikshit was induced to disregard the Brahminical culture due to a slight provocation of hunger and thirst. Maharaj Parikshit lamented the accidental incident, and he desired that all his kingdom, strength, and accumulation of wealth would be burned up for not being engaged in Brahminical culture, etc. Where wealth and strength are not engaged in the advancement of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection, the state and home are surely doomed by providence. If we want peace and prosperity in the world, we should take lessons from this verse. Every state and every home must endeavor to advance the cause of Brahminical culture for self-purification, God consciousness for self-realization, and cow protection for getting sufficient milk and the best food to continue a perfect civilization. Om Gyanam Timarantasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Once again here, I am uncivilized, and due to my neglect of Brahmanical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my strength, kingdom, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahmana's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. So we all know the very glorious, very wonderful pastime of Maharaj Parikshit. We all know that how Maharaj Parikshit is the grandson of the Pandavas, basically the grandson of Lord Krishna, because the Pandavas are related to Lord Krishna and he's born in the same dynasty. And when he was in the womb of his mother, Uttara, then he has the vision of Lord Krishna within the womb. And therefore his name is Parikshit, which means someone who examines. He was always examining the entire world, trying to find the same person that he saw within the womb of his mother. When someone sees the Lord, when someone sees Krishna, then Krishna is so beautiful, Krishna is so wonderful, that there's nothing in the world that compares to it. And so one wants to go back and see that same vision of the Lord. Just like Narad Muni, he sees the Lord for a moment and then he loses the vision of the Lord. And then he wants to see the Lord again. He wants to see the Lord again, but he is unable to. And then Krishna tells him that in this lifetime, you will not see me again, because until we are fully purified, we cannot see the Lord. So he tells Narad Muni that you must in this lifetime purify your existence so that you can see the Lord. And at the end of your life, you will have the opportunity to see the Lord in your next life. In the same way, Parikshit Maharaj, he sees the Lord in the womb of his mother. And for the rest of his life, he's searching, where is that same beautiful Lord, the same personality of God and Lord Shri Krishna? Where is he, so that I can then see him again? And Maharaj Parikshit, therefore, is known as the examiner. He's examining everything, trying to find the Lord. And then he sees the Lord again at the end of his life in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? He doesn't get another vision of the Lord, but then at the end, due to the mercy of Shukadev Goswami, he sees the Lord in the pages of the Bhagavatam. So Parikshit Maharaj, he is a born devotee. He is a glorious personality. And so his example, his pastime is perfect. His example is meant for all of us. It is the most wonderful example. And so we see that one time he's out, searching, hunting, doing his kingly duties. The kings before had to hunt just to alleviate the forests of tigers and dangerous animals, and also to practice their skills of archery. And then he becomes very, very thirsty. And then he goes to the ashram of Shamika Rishi in hopes of getting some water. He goes to the ashram looking for water, and he's overcome by thirst. And it's actually a psychological fact that when a person is very thirsty, then they start to lose their mind. So if you're hungry, you can control it. But if you're thirsty, a person will actually lose their mind out of thirst. So Maharaj Parikshit, due to the will of the Lord, due to the plan of the Lord, he becomes very disturbed. And he's asking the sage for water. The sage is in meditation, not realizing that the sage is in meditation. He becomes angry at the sage, and he puts a dead snake around his neck. And because of putting this dead snake around his neck and then leaving, Shamika Rishi's son, Shringi, comes there. And when he sees this, then he becomes very angry. He feels that this is a great offense against his father, who's a sage. And so we know that Shringi then takes water in his hand and he curses Maharaj Parikshit to die in 7 days. He says that these kings have lost their their culture. They have become like dogs, and now they are insulting the Brahmanas. So Maharaj Parikshit, he should die in 7 days. Now, unlike what we often think, the Vedic culture before was very reasonable. It was a very, natural culture. And so when his meditation breaks, then Shamika Rishi, he understands what his son has done. And he chastises him greatly because he understands that this is a great offense. For a very small offense, Shringi has given such a heavy curse. And this was not befitting. So an offense is there, an offense must be rectified. But the rectification or the punishment for the offense that Shringi gave to Maharaj Parikshit was no comparison. The king was thirsty. The king had lost his mind. The king was desperate for water. And in that desperation, he put a dead snake. It wasn't even a living snake that would hurt the sage. He put a dead snake around the neck of the sage and then left. And the son is so proud that he's taking such great offense that he's cursing Maharaj Parikshit to die in 7 days. This was not proper. And what Shamika Rishi in fact points out to Shringi, that it is not the king who is offended, but you have offended by acting in this way. You've done a grave offense. Because the king is a Raja Rishi. The king is a sage. And the king is also a pure devotee of the Lord. And by acting in this way, by showing your anger towards him, you have offended this great devotee of the Lord. And this is not befitting you. This is very bad. But the curse has been spoken. And so at that point, it's described, our acharyas describe that Maharaj Parikshit understands, he receives news of this curse. And when he hears of Shringi's curse, at that point, Maharaj Parikshit had the spiritual power and he had the spiritual potency to deflect that curse. He did not have to undergo that curse of that Brahmana boy. This is a very important point, that Parikshit Maharaj was not obliged to accept that curse of the Brahman boy. Because he was such a pure devotee of the Lord, then the pure devotee, they can deflect the curse of these ritualistic Brahmanas. And furthermore, Parikshit Maharaj had the power to counter curse Shringi. So he could have, cursed him back. And he had the power to do that as well, because on his account of being a pure devotee of the Lord, being more spiritually advanced than the sage. But Parikshit Maharaj does not do that. And Srila Prabhupada therefore describes that Parikshit Maharaj shows the example of the ideal devotee, that he does not engage in this cycle of cursing and counter-cursing and counter-cursing and cursing. Because like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says that when we get something like this, it is due to our past karma. And when we counter-curse, then we are perpetuating that cycle of karma. So we got cursed because it was our past karma. Then we counter-curse. And so by accepting that curse, we're relieving ourselves, but then we counter-curse. Then again, we've cursed that person. Then that person will counter-curse. And in this way, the reaction will go back and forth. And it will continue on like this. And when we counter-curse, then we're actually doing the other person a favor. We're actually helping them become relieved of their sinful activity, their karmic reaction. Therefore, actually, Shamika Rishi, who was the father of Shringi, he was actually hoping that the sage would come back and curse his son. The king, Parikshit Maharaj, would come back and curse his son. Because he was thinking that if he gets cursed by Maharaj Parikshit, then it will relieve Shringi of the offense. He was hoping that Maharaj Parikshit would not accept the curse, and he was hoping that he would counter-curse, because that would actually have been a benediction for his son. But Parikshit Maharaj does not do that. He does not do that because Parikshit Maharaj, had this great regard of Brahminical culture. He was setting the example for his entire world, for all of his citizens. And as a king, he was setting the ideal example for all the citizens. That was his first duty. And so many kings, so many sages we find in the past in Vedic culture, they often say, like Ambarish Maharaj and so many others, that they're not afraid of death, they're not afraid of suffering, but what they are afraid of is displeasing the Brahmanas. Why the Brahmanas? Because generally the Brahmanas are the devotees of the Lord. They're afraid of displeasing the devotee of the Lord. That is the greatest inauspiciousness. Nothing else in this world is more inauspicious because of the reaction that it brings, because of the displeasure of Krishna that it brings. They're afraid of this. And then here in this verse, it sort of closes the loop. It closes the loop in the sense, this was actually a very eye-opening verse for me, because not only we see this example of Maharaj Parikshit, that he's so ideal and so humble. He accepts that curse. He sees it as a plan of the Lord. He thinks that this curse, the reason why also he does not deflect it, is he says that the fact that I've been cursed, it must be that Krishna desires something. Otherwise, why would this happen in my life? And he's right. Because of that, he gets to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Because of that, Bhagavatam is revealed to the entire world. So Parikshit Maharaj understands it as the will of the Lord. At the same time, the reason this verse is very special is that not only does he accept that curse, but then here he's saying that let my entire kingdom, let my riches, all my wealth and strength, let it burn up by the wrath of this Brahmana, so that I may never make this mistake again. So what to speak of counter cursing or deflecting the curse, he is accepting the result of the curse and in some ways wanting the reaction to come so that in the future he does not make that same mistake again. He's accepted it as his own mistake, and he's saying, so in the future, I never make this mistake again. Let me suffer the reaction. And I was thinking that generally, we don't want to offend devotees, and the first thing is that we should avoid offending devotees at all costs. But even if we do offend, and the offense is already done, we know that we've offended, then we're trying to avoid the reaction by all means, right? We're hoping that everything goes well. I don't get the reaction. We may go and ask for forgiveness, which is very nice. We should do that. And partly the reason we're asking for forgiveness is that so nothing bad happens to us, to avoid that the result of that. But Maharaj Parikshit, he's not even trying to avoid that. He's saying, no, this is good for me. So we can understand that there's a very serious reaction to offending a devotee. But that reaction is the mercy of the Lord as well. Why does Krishna give that reaction? It's not like Krishna has a vengeance or Krishna wants to take revenge. Why does Krishna do that? He gives it to us because in this way we will never make that mistake again. So that's also a manifestation of his mercy. He's being merciful in this way so that it changes our attitude. This verse says so nicely. It's very amazing the words that Prabhupada uses in the translation. It says, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes, right? So we have a certain attitude, a certain mindset, a certain vision that leads us to make an offense. And it's that attitude that leads us to that mindset. And what that reaction does, it doesn't just resolve the offense, but it resolves or it fixes the attitude that makes the offense. And that's the most valuable thing, because if our attitude doesn't change, then we'll keep making offenses, even if we get the reaction. So and therefore, Vaishnava Aparad's offense is so great because it has to go very, the Krishna has to go very deep into our heart and remove that offense. And this is Krishna's mercy. This is the mercy of the Lord when we get that realization, when that attitude is changed, our heart is changed. And we can change our mindset by the reaction, but we can also change our mindset by our Krishna consciousness and by avoiding these things altogether, so that we don't have to go through that reaction. Because another thing that this verse is telling us, it's prophesizing. It's saying that the result of reactions is that it burns up whatever we have. In other places, Prabhupada says that by offending the devotees, the duration of our life is reduced. So it's burning up our body, it's burning up our good fortune, it's burning up our riches, our kingdom, everything gets destroyed. So at all costs, even if we do less devotional service, even if we are not able to fulfill our preaching so nicely, but at all costs, we can avoid the offense to a devotee. So on this point, I just wanted to make some other observations about what Prabhupada is saying in this verse and then in the purport. He's describing how this is actually what progressive human civilization means. That human civilization means it's based on Brahminical culture, it's based on God consciousness, and it's based on the protection of cows. So these three things are the most valuable thing that we have. The saints and the sages, which is Brahminical culture, God consciousness, which is spiritual development, and finally protection of cows. And we see that in modern civilization, in modern society, the whole society is based on destroying these three things. There's no, this is why the modern society is going in exactly the opposite direction. It's going in an opposite way. Because modern society is, reducing God consciousness. Everything is about more atheism, separation of church and state. Religion is no longer important. Modern society is based upon cow slaughter, meat eating. On one hand, people have more pets, they have more animals with them, but on the other hand, meat eating is increasing. Harming the animals is increasing, especially the cows. And it's interesting, I was just reading in Time magazine. Time magazine had mentioned how the greatest environmental damage is due to beef, cow slaughter. And they were saying how if we want to reverse climate change, we have to now move to a protein-based meat, because this what they call grazing or cattle ranching. This is killing the planet. The gases that the cows emit when they're killed literally destroy our ozone. And the final thing is about Brahminical culture, which is this culture of God consciousness, of respecting the saintly culture, the devotees of the Lord. This is all being destroyed. So our Krishna consciousness movement, the very purpose of our movement is to reestablish these three things. What Krishna consciousness means is reestablishing Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and the protection of cows. And this is why Srila Prabhupada said that 50% of his work is not fulfilled, because he wanted to establish Varnashram Dharma. He wanted to establish farm communities with cows, and he wanted to revive this consciousness. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada said Varnashram is not particularly for the devotees. Many senior devotees have also mentioned this. Varna ashram he particularly wanted to establish because he said that most of the society will not become devotees. Most people, they won't join Krishna consciousness and become devotees, unalloyed devotees of the Lord. And so for them, this is the fallback. In other words, for them, this is the platform of goodness upon which everything else builds. So Prabhupada says this many times, that we should be established in the mode of goodness. Because even if we have a fall down, we'll still fall down to the mode of goodness. And human society is like this, that human society will continue to progress when they're enjoying, which is natural for most human beings. Sense enjoyment is natural for us who are not fully spiritually realized, but we will enjoy on the platform of at least religious principles, on the platform of the mode of goodness. So there's nothing wrong with enjoying this world. We can enjoy, have a happy life, but even materially speaking, I mean, spiritually, obviously, we have a very happy life. But even if we have material desires, we can enjoy them. But they must be done according to the rules and regulations. And then that enjoyment will gradually make us advance. It will purify us and make us advance. Just like recently, I was reading the Ishopanishad, and there Prabhupada mentions that how there's karma, which is fruit of activities. Karma in this context just means action. There's vikarma, which is sinful activities, bad activities. And then there's akarma, which is pure devotional service for the Lord. And Prabhupada was mentioning that if we are going to enjoy, then best thing is to do akarma. Best is to serve the Lord. But if we cannot do that, if we are going to enjoy, we should at least do akarma. We should at least do activities for the Lord. If we cannot do akarma, we should at least do karma, which is fruit of activities. But we should never do vikarma, because vikarma destroys the soul. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the same thing, that whatever it is, we should never perform sinful activities. That vikarma has to be given up. We want to enjoy, we can do karma, no problem. No problem. We can enjoy according to the rules and regulations. But vikarma has to be given up. The sinful proclivity, these four principles: meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication. These four activities must be given up. Adharma must be given up. So Brahminical culture, enjoyment according to Brahminical culture, that is for the gradual elevation of human society. And so therefore, these great personalities, they are showing by example for the benefit of all of us. They're setting an example for all of us to follow. Many people, they may think or they may feel that, well, these are great souls. How can we apply this principle in our own life? These are great personalities. So, what is the relevance for me? I'm not so advanced, and that's, honesty. But we must understand that the tests that Krishna put before them are also much greater than the test that Krishna puts before us. So when we are following in their footsteps, we're not actually imitating them, we're actually following in their footsteps. Maharaj Parikshit was cursed to die in 7 days. Imagine if someone told us that, they're going to, in 7 days, we're going to die because of them. Then, of course, we cannot follow Maharaj Parikshit's example because we're not on that level. But our tests are not so great. Our tests are generally, someone offended us, or someone said something, or someone did something that we didn't like. So when our tests are less, then we can behave in the same way as Maharaj Parikshit, because Maharaj Parikshit is setting an example for us to follow, so that when we get our smaller tests, we can also overcome them in this way. We see that Haridas Thakur was similar to Maharaj Parikshit, where he forgave the Qazi and his executioners. So we cannot follow in the footsteps, we cannot imitate Haridas Thakur, that someone is trying to kill us and we will forgive them. But yes, if someone makes a small offense towards us, then we can forgive them and we can move on. If someone is disturbing us, then we can remember Haridas Thakur's example and resolve them in that way. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, he went through so much with his father Hiranyakashipu, and his father was trying to kill him. We cannot imitate Prahlad Maharaj. We won't be able to meditate on the Lord in a pit of snakes. But again, we can follow his example, that when we have someone who's disturbing us, who's bothering us, then we can be undisturbed, like Prahlad Maharaj. Similarly, we have the example of Jesus Christ, who on the cross, he said, "My Father, please forgive them. They do not know what they're doing." And similarly, we have Maharaj Yudhishthir, Ambarish Maharaj. All of these great souls are showing the same example. So why are the scriptures wasting so many pages if we are not meant to follow their example? Devotee after devotee, every single story, Parikshit Maharaj, Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, Jesus Christ, Yudhishthira Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, all of them, they are showing the same example. They are, forgiving their perpetrators. They are taking the higher ground. So this means that this is the right thing to do. And in fact, in our own life, we will see that it's the only path that we can take, because the world is made in such a way that actually we won't be able to even be happy or live unless we apply this principle. I was actually just watching this short film. It was a Jewish survivor of the Holocaust. And this lady was in the camps, and she had seen, her parents being killed. She had seen, and somehow she had survived. And her survival, she was saying, was in some ways not a benediction. I mean, it was almost more difficult because she had to live with these memories. And she said that the only way that she got relief, the only way she liberated herself from the agony of the pain of that memory and that suffering, she said, I had to forgive them. I had to forgive them. And once I forgave the Nazis who did all this to the Jews and to my family members, then I was free. Then I gained freedom. So even a non-devotee is realizing this. Even a materialist is saying that this is the path to freedom. This is the path to happiness. So the devotees of the Lord are showing us the same thing, that we as devotees, it's not really an option. It's actually the devotees are showing us this example to prepare us for life, that when we come in these same situations, this is how we can gain freedom. This is how we can gain happiness. Srila Prabhupada, in one place, he says that one's greatness is estimated by one's ability to tolerate difficult circumstances. So a person becomes great not by how much they can lift, how big of a bodybuilder they are, or how long they can fast, but the greatness of a person is known by their ability to tolerate difficult circumstances. Prabhupada says, to err is human, but to forgive is divine. And this is Parikshit Maharaj's example, that he, rather than counter-cursing the sage, he forgives the sage. He thinks this boy is a foolish boy. But what is the message from Krishna for me in this? So a devotee looks at it more deeply, that, well, this happened, this is the external thing, but what is Krishna's message? This boy was just a boy. He was a fool. But Krishna must be giving me a message through this. And we see also that he respects, the boy was wrong. The boy was, as you could say, immature. But Parikshit Maharaj is respecting the role of a Brahmana. He's respecting the position, the place of a Brahmana. And that also is a very nice point, that as devotees of the Lord, even if the other devotee is less advanced, even sometimes a sannyasi may be less advanced, or a senior devotee may be less advanced, we may feel, but they respect the position, they respect the role, that no, this is a devotee of the Lord and it's coming through a devotee, so there must be some message for me. There must be something that Krishna is wanting to teach me through this. And so the devotee's vision is one step deeper, that rather than focusing on the external circumstance, the devotee focuses on what Krishna wants us to see. And the devotee is the well-wisher of every living being. So we see that Parikshit Maharaj, also, why doesn't he curse the Brahman boy? Because he's a well-wisher of all living beings. And similarly, we see the example, actually, because His Holiness Ramabhat Maharaj has been speaking on the Ramayana. This comes to I'm reminded of this, that how we see the example of Vibhishan, that Vibhishan and Ravana, they had a tiff, right? They're two brothers, and they didn't get along. And we think, well, obviously Vibhishan was right. But whatever it was, Ravana and Vibhishan disliked each other. But Vibhishan, and so therefore they were fighting on opposite sides. But Vibhishan was victorious over Ravana. Why? Because no matter what Ravana did to Vibhishan, his brother, he could not change Vibhishan's heart of being a well-wisher of Ravana. And that was Vibhishan's victory. That no matter what Ravana did, Vibhishan was always thinking of Ravana's good. He was always his well-wisher. And therefore Vibhishan, that was his victory. He was victorious over Ravana. Well, Ravana always wanted to destroy Vibhishan. Vibhishan's thought was, in every situation, how can I benefit Ravana? And in our own devotee relationships, we can think about this in this way, that we see maybe another devotee is trying to destroy us or trying to humiliate us or reduce us. And we can think that, okay, they are trying to do that, but my challenge, my victory is always in being their well-wisher, that I will try to be their well-wisher and help them in every way. And that is my victory. And Lord Jesus Christ also said this, that he told his disciples on the Sermon on the Mount. This is his most famous sermon. And the instructions that Jesus Christ gives are actually very basic, and therefore they're actually very nice for us. It's a very nice set of instructions. And he tells his disciples, he says that you should compete with one another. You should compete with one another on who can be more humble, who can praise the other person more. And we see this, that even in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, they would do this, that they would compete with one another on who can praise the other devotee more. No, you praise me, I'll praise you in an even better way. In the same way, we can compete on who can be the other person's well-wisher even more, who can help the person even more. And rather than seeing the faults, we can compete on who can see the good in others even more. Prabhupada says that seeing the faults in a devotee is like seeing faults on the moon, because the devotee is like the moon. Why? On his account of becoming a devotee of the Lord, and on the account of his or her being on the path of spiritual life, their heart will become purified one day. Their heart will become pure because they're on this spiritual purifying path. So seeing faults in them is like seeing faults on the moon. Even though the moon has faults, the moon is so brilliant. It is so glorious that a sane, an intelligent person does not criticize the moon for its faults. In the same way, the devotee has so many good qualities on account of his being a devotee of the Lord, that advanced devotees never see the faults in other devotees. I was just listening in a class, a very nice class, that this devotee was saying that how the reason why seeing faults in a devotee is not correct is because every devotee has a future. So one time Prabhupada, he was asked that how many pure devotees are in the movement. And Prabhupada asked his other disciples sitting there, he said, how many disciples do I have? And he said, that's how many pure devotees there are in this movement. So devotees who say that there's no pure devotees in this movement, they're actually wrong. Because Prabhupada says, no, the number of disciples that I have, that's how many pure devotees I have. Why did he say that when obviously they were not? It's because eventually that devotee will become a pure devotee. So every devotee has a future. And even if that devotee is, 100 years old, they still have a future. And in the future, they will become purified. And because they've taken to the path. So, we can, a nice meditation is that we can try to see the good qualities in others. And this is the easiest way to practice this verse, Trinadapi Sunichena. This is the easiest way to practice is, people do have faults. It's a fact. So we can't, act, behave as though they don't exist. People do have faults. But what this verse means is that we can focus on their good qualities. We can see what is the good. We can see, how much have they done for Krishna, and overlook the things that they have not done. We can see, this is everything that this devotee has done, how wonderful it is. And it's this gratefulness that helps us appreciate the devotee by seeing, by being grateful. Look at everything that I've received from these devotees. So there's so much more that we can say on this verse. So I'll stop here. I think this is a good place to stop, and we can have some discussion. Many senior devotees are on this call, so I'm sure they have more to say on this and more realization on this than I do. So, thank you. If there's any comments or questions, please speak.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to express my appreciation for your thorough analysis of this verse, and really, really appreciate. That was so insightful, your class. So just wanted to express my appreciation.
Thank you, Mataji. You are actually living this. I'm just speaking this, but you're actually, you have realization of these things. So, yes.
I am not. That is your humility. And that's what I appreciate. Thank you so much. It is very, very practical too. There is so much to devotional service. Is not just lip service, right? There is much more to it. And so, it's a class which guides everybody to, how to live a devotional life. I mean, we instruct ourselves, we share that with others as well. There is always a refining process. And so I'm really, really grateful for the class. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much.
When are you coming back?
We're actually coming back this Sunday evening.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Okay, yes, I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful class, Prabhu. Glories to Prabhupada. So, thank you so much, Prabhu, for the very beautiful class. So, as one practices, just a comment, Prabhu, as one practices devotional service, one gets more refined and will be able to see both, both the sides, right? Good and bad.
Yes.
But, if one looks at the bad things and, try to act on them or try to, I'm not saying that we should be blind, but yeah, as you rightly mentioned, as people will have faults because being of human beings or human bodies. But when we see these qualities, there are a lot of good qualities also has. Just being the devotee itself is a great quality, chanting the holy name. But generally, if I can focus on those good qualities of those devotees, bad qualities, it will not be visible, because when I look at the moon, there are spots, but we don't see them, right? So often like the moonlight we see. But yeah, I'm just telling myself, the way you presented it. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you.
qualities.
Yes.
Because as you said again, Prabhupada, quote, right? The process started. And as soon as one chants the holy name, the process of going back to Godhead is started.
Mm.
So, they are going to go back. Whoever is the other side. I don't know about myself because I have so many things, but the other devotees will go for sure, right? So, I don't want to commit those. Of course, I don't want to commit those mistakes or offenses to them because the Lord doesn't like it, right? I cannot be with that person when I go back to Godhead with the offensive attitude.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for
Yes. Yes, Prabhu, you brought some very nice points that I wanted to mention. I forgot to mention until now. Um, um, in our, in Bhakti Shastri study guide like that, they mention that how the essence of an offense is the displeasure of Krishna. So like you're mentioning at the end, this thing, that the reason why, what is an offense? It means it's something that displeases Krishna. So this is the reason why we avoid these offenses, is because it displeases Krishna. And then the other thing that you reminded me of your point about the moon and seeing the devotee and the positive things. A few devotees have told me that gratefulness is the bridge from the material world to the spiritual world. That actually this was a very big realization that they had. Varsana Maharaj in New Vrindavan, he told me this, that gratefulness is the bridge from the material world to the spiritual world. And oftentimes when we become, very angry with another person or devotee, anyone actually, not even just devotee, then the first thing that happens is we forget how much they've done, or like we become ungrateful. And similarly, when we are doing very well in spiritual life, when we really are getting into this process, we really get into it because we're so grateful for it, that wow, what have I received, this wonderful devotional service, this wonderful Krishna consciousness, and all these devotees. So especially, when the great souls, when they make a mistake, like Lord Brahma, he made a mistake, he ran after his daughter. Sometimes even very advanced devotees in our movement, they make mistakes. Then the way to avoid that, like you were saying, is to be grateful for all that they have done. Like, we sometimes forget all the service that they've done, and what devotees see is just the mistake that they made, that, oh, they made this offense, and therefore it becomes a reason to criticize them or offend them, forgetting all the service and their position, their exalted position. So that gratefulness is a material thing, but it's also a very important spiritual quality, that spiritually it really makes a huge difference. So yes, so that's the nice comment that you gave. The easiest way, my Guru Maharaj also says, is to focus on the good and to see and remember the good of the devotee. And then and Maharaj Parikshit is doing the same here. He's avoiding the fact, he's forgetting the fact of the offense of Shringi, and he's remembering that, oh, this is a Brahmana, and these Brahmanas, they are the guides of society, they're the leaders of society, they're doing so much for us. And so he's therefore so careful about Brahminical culture to maintain that Brahminical culture.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. If there isn't any other comment or question, we can end now. I think it's just about time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.